Dave, can you explain to everyone who our guest is today?
Well, we've got a very accomplished author whose book right now is at the top of the charts.
Yeah.
It's
and that's not like one of the fake charts.
No, these are like real, not like the fake charts our books are on. This is like a real chart.
Yeah.
Like New York Times kind of stuff,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Her name is Meg Kissinger, and she wrote a really heartwarming book about, well, mental illness.
Yeah.
And depression and anxiety. All the stuff we love to talk about.
Oh, exactly. So we'll be talking about all of that because it's time for Minutia Men's Celebrity Interview.
The following is a Tony Lasano podcast, an Opie show on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. This is the Minutia Men Celebrity Interview with Rick and Dave.
So just to put a little meat on the bones, Dave, our next guest is an award-winning journalist. She spent decades writing about mental health. She's recently wrote a best-selling book that focuses on her own family's struggles with depression, anxiety, suicide. Her book, While You Were Out, an intimate family portrait of mental illness in an era of silence, is currently #1 on Amazon in biographies of journalists, editors, and publishers. Has been named the Book of the Month, which is fantastic, on bookofthemonth.com. And she's also featured in the New York Times. So please welcome Meg Kissinger. Meg, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. So happy to be here.
So I want to start with saying that you're a phenomenal writer. As Dave and I are both writers, this book is so well written. But I want to start with this passage.
Yeah.
Our family's shorthand way of dealing with these situations by simply not discussing them or making light of it had an insidious way of fueling shame and blame where none was warranted. So are you saying that burying your emotions and angst deep down into your soul and hoping they never bubble up to the surface is a bad thing? Because Dave and I have been honoring our German heritage by doing this for our entire lives.
Yeah. And we're a little nervous. We just shove it down there. It's down, way down there.
Shove it down. That's my mom
Not
told me
a good
that.
plan, guys. Well, I'm half. Or I don't know if we're half German. We're part German. Our last name is Kissinger, of course. So that ain't Irish.
Yeah.
But the German part, stuff it down there, boys. Yeah. Let it boil. Let it just burn holes in your stomach. Let those ulcers bleed and just have a good time. But then, being mostly Irish,
you just drink it away then.
We fancy the drink. So So there's
as opposed to the Germans who don't drink it all.
Right. Yeah, that was. It turns out that was not a winning combo.
No.
Is just stuffing down the old cells. But I have to say, so I was thinking about being on this podcast, and how the hell are we gonna work in all these serious themes in a podcast, name that is devoted to minutia. But I know, listening to your fine podcast, you do tackle these heady topics. I'm excited to see where this is headed.
We're not just clowns, Meg.
You don't have any lawyers per se listening on this by any chance.
You're clowns with portfolio.
We are.
Wow. Well, that's going to go on the W-2 forms from now on. That's why. I agree with Rick. This book, I mean, you really are a phenomenal writer, and I know you've been doing it for decades. It's kind of as a journalist. But I mean, I'm sure you've been told this, but this book is really, really well written. And
thanks.
And I love this line, a little bit what we just talked about. Take 2 alcoholics, one with bipolar and the other one with crippling anxiety, and let them have 8 kids in 12 years. What could possibly go wrong? I think that's a pretty good way to sum up at least the foundation of your family struggles. So tell us a little bit about your parents.
Yeah, well, they were lovely people and so much fun to be around. When I first got this idea to write the book, it was because I'd seen in my reporting, just how people are dismissive of those with serious mental illness, and we kind of paint them in one way or another, and usually it's either scary or foreboding or pathetic. And really, the people in my family are none of the above. I mean, it was a lot of fun growing up in the Kissinger family. And it was only when I sat down and put this all together and, read it myself, I was like, holy shit, this family has been through it. So, my mom and dad they tried their best, and they did. They had, as I said, 8 kids in 12 years. I'm the 4th. I'm one of the monkeys in the middle. Mm-hmm. So I had a great vantage to observe.
So you were kind of like Jan Brady.
Yeah.
I was the Jan Brady of the Kissinger family. Yes, exactly. So anyway, they were trying their best. So I don't know about you guys, but you read these memoirs where it gets pretty whiny after about page 50.
Yeah.
And I had the good grace of having so many siblings that it was, you didn't really run out of material. The challenge was more what to put in there, or
what to take out, probably, right?
I mean, yeah, right. It was painful to take stuff out. So yeah, I had a lot of good material.
And all your brothers and sisters participated in the writing. I mean, would you have like a Google Doc or something, right? Where people would constantly.
Yeah, that was the miracle of this thing. This was a team sport, fellas. This was like, I was kind of like Zobrist, and they were, they were all. I was the utility infielder.
Okay, I'm a White Sox fan. We're ending this interview right now.
Sorry. No, I know. I don't, and I know this is a fault line of all Chicagoans, so I shouldn't tip my loyalty. Yeah. But anyway, let me just say
I'm on your side, Meg. Yeah. I'm on your side.
You've got such a good voice.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, no, I'm the one that you're supposed to say I have the good voice. All right, we discussed this before we went on the air.
Well, you both have good
Thank
voices. Anyway, so this project of mine, this wacky idea to write this very intense story,
because it's very wacky. This is very wacky.
Yeah, like the funny, the upside of suicide. But it was it was an important story, I thought, to tell, because I could tell it in a way with as the title says, an intimacy and a familiarity that could let readers know these are God's creatures. These are full-throated, loving, well-intentioned people who just happen to be saddled with, some pretty horrible diagnoses. And again, we're all doing our best. But I knew if I was going to tell the story in the way that it had to be told, to be honest, that we'd have to plow through some hairy stuff. Yeah. And who wanted to go back and revisit all that? Well, the short answer is me. But then when I went to my brothers and sisters and said, listen, I love you more than anything, and the last thing I want to do is hurt anybody, but I think we have a story that can help a lot of people. And to their enduring credit, they all signed right on. And so I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it all in a Google Doc. You can access, so I'm going to get the police records from the suicide deaths. I'm going to get the medical files. I'm going to do my investigative reporter diligence on our family story. And you can look at all, some, or none of it. But what I want you to do is, before I hit the send button to the editor, read it. And if there's anything in there that's going to kill our relationship, or that you just can't live with, let me know. And anyway, they all did, and nobody took anything out.
Wow.
And there's some humiliating stuff in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had done that before I wrote my latest novel. But it's about my childhood.
Yeah. But I think that, my reporting background was very helpful in that one of the first rules that you learn is like this no surprise journalism. You don't want to like jump out of the, like from behind the couch and be like, aha. And, just think it's a richer, better told story when all the cards are on the table.
So, I'm a Catholic as you are. And I know Catholic shame.
So there's another one out there. I never knew there was another guy out there. You, me, and Stephen Colbert.
Yeah. That's it. There's only a few of us.
And the guy with the big hat, what's his name? The Pope. He's one of them.
Fancy red shoes, that guy.
Yeah. So, John Mulaney's my favorite comedian, and I think he's fallen away. But I loved his line when he talked about how his now ex-wife, but then when she was asking about what it was like to be Catholic, and he said, don't Google us.
but
anyway, it's good to know that somebody's still left in the pew alongside me.
Well, I think religion actually played a big part in this story, right? Don't you think that religion factors into the family dynamics?
Oh, absolutely. Of course. I mean, that was our world. Our world was like the size of the head of a pin. I mean, we went to Catholic school, and then so Monday through Friday we'd be well, the nuns would be trying to teach us. Didn't stick too well with me or a couple other of the kids in my family, but they tried. And then Saturday night, there'd be whoop-de-doos, and then everybody would haul their hungover bodies to mass on Sunday. So, that was our world, was that parish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, like Rick said, it's kind of the, that kind of Catholic shame too, right? That you mentioned earlier. It's like, didn't your dad kind of tell you after I believe it was when your sister committed suicide?
Right.
We're gonna, we're gonna tell her that she got hit by a train or something, right? I mean, it was
no. He said, if anybody asks, this was an accident,
right? Because she ran in front of a train, right? Is that how she committed suicide? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so, and he didn't say that to be mean. I mean, it sounded scary and foreboding the night that she died. He called us all into the living room and said, in no uncertain terms, if anybody asks, this was an accident.
Yeah.
So, and we knew that was ridiculous. Nobody was going to buy that, but he didn't say that out of cruelty, or he was afraid. He was scared. He was afraid that Nancy would not be allowed to have a funeral because in the eyes of the Catholic Church, suicide is a sin, which you can kind of understand. I mean, they're not going to give the green light and say, like, have at it. But,
I remember being in a CCD class once and asking them to explain to me why it is a sin. I mean, of course you don't want to.
Really, good for you. That's
right.
awesome.
But, the only person you're harming is yourself, right? It's
right. Yeah.
I just never understood it.
Yeah. And they want you to, what are they, I'm curious about do you remember what the answer was?
You're not going to like the answer.
Didn't they paddle you? Didn't they hit you over the head with something or whatever?
They told me not only was it a sin, it's the worst sin possible.
Yeah, right. And you committed a sin for asking, Mr. Kempfer.
Exactly. Right. And please go in the hallway, young man.
No. Well, that is not helpful.
Oh, of course it's not. It's
that's a problem.
But I even, as a 10-year-old, sensed that this wasn't something people were doing for fun. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. And well, the church has really improved their position on this for the most part. I mean, it's still it's still tricky, but there's a lot more compassion. In fact, there's a fantastic organization right there in your fair city. So the Archdiocese of Chicago runs a program for families who've lost somebody to suicide, and they do beautiful work. It's called LOSS, which is loving outreach to survivors of suicide. Anyway, they're fantastic. In fact, I reference it in the book, and this is I hope not too much of a spoiler, but our whole family goes. So my dad and my brother Jake got a lot of comfort from belonging to this organization, and they had this day where you were meant to show up and grieve the loss of these people from your family who you miss so much. And we did, but we were still stuck in that mode. We were too nervous to really talk about it. So it was a whole lot easier to laugh about it, which is, it's kind of hard to figure out a punchline to these things. Yeah. But anyway, we show up at these things and the guy's playing the piano. It's this very soulful afternoon, and they'd fashioned these quilt squares for everybody who had family members that died. Anyway, my brother Jake came across some lady who was like 87 years old. And, the other squares were like, this 17-year-old kid. I mean, they're horrible, sad, heartbreaking stories. And we come to this one square, and it's this 87-year-old lady. And Jake, who, God bless him, but he's just very literal. He's like, 87? Like, she couldn't have waited a year or two? So we just burst out laughing. And, of course, my dad comes storming towards us. And he's like, no laughing.
No laughing.
Anyway, it was, woo. But, so they're trying. We do need to find ways, of course, to give comfort to one another. The suicide rate now, since my brother Danny died in 1997, the suicide rate has gone up more than 30%. It's just outrageous. Yeah. It's terrible.
Well, COVID didn't help, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No. And it's at an all-time high, and it's the second leading cause of death in young people, which is scandalous. Yeah. So we better find ways to make people comfortable talking about suicidal ideation, or, it's a very human emotion to consider suicide. And unless we start talking about it and not, being like that CCD teacher and tell you to not even think about it, talk about it. So
Yeah.
let's evolve, people.
Yeah, did you hear that, Mrs. Nicholson?
Yeah.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And now we do too.
But the I'm sorry.
Mrs. Nicholson, right? I'm sure she's a huge listener of this podcast.
The one thing that is, I think, kind of positive is now if you watch shows on TV or streaming, and if suicide is a part of a show or a movie, they do put it in the warning at the beginning, and often at the end they put like the suicide prevention hotline number in there, which is great. But I think the big part, I think a big part of this book focuses on how our mental health system in the U.S. is broken, and now that it's fixed, it's fixed.
But you fixed it with this book, so we appreciate that.
We fixed it on this very podcast.
Yeah.
The Nobel Peace Prize is awarded to Minutia Man for fixing mental health.
How bad is it really? It's pretty bad.
Oh, it's bad. No, first of all, it's not a system. So get that out of your head right away.
Great.
And, it's just because the system is defined as, entities that work together, and nothing in mental health works together. People are they're very quick to pass the buck. There's still just so much misunderstanding. And anyway, it's getting better, of course. You can't even turn on, well, I was going to say a Bears game without hearing a mental health. Well, last night's game aside, Bears fans do need mental health, help, but it's everywhere now. I mean, sides of buses, the L, anywhere you turn, you're seeing notices for getting mental health care. The problem is finding it, So I don't know if you guys have had occasion or anybody in your family has, but when you try to access mental health care, it's like, walking through a labyrinth. I mean, it's really confusing, and it needs to be a whole lot easier and more streamlined. And we need more mental health providers. We need just easier access to it. And can the friggin' insurance companies start paying for this? I was just going to
say that. That's really, to me, that's even a bigger problem. Is, affording it.
And denying care continuously, right?
Yeah. They start at no, and then you gotta like prove yourself. Can you imagine if you had like a lump, or whatever, chest pains, and you had to justify it? But that's what they make you do with, a mental health issue.
Oh, if you opened up our medicine cabinet, we've got our Zoloft. We've got our, we've got our Depakote. Oh, yeah. If you need something, Meg, you come to me, buddy. Dr. Feelgood will fix you right up.
In fact, I think you may have your next book. Right there.
Okay. The next one.
I imagine, sadly, many of our listeners are probably grappling with, similar issues that, right now that we're talking about. Any advice to them? I mean, we already talked about how there are more and more organizations and how mental health is being more available, especially with teletherapy, right? And online therapy. But what advice? I mean, can you give any advice? You've been through the war. Any advice?
Yeah. I mean, my best advice, I think, which sounds so woo woo, and it's really not, is just find ways to have these conversations. So, don't.
This is for our German audience there. Okay. You talk to one another.
Yeah. And that would be
exactly.
Woo-woo. It's not woo-woo. It's woo-woo.
Ach du lieber. Anyway, have these, just look at it like you would cancer or heart disease. Love that person and work to help them, and don't make them feel guilty about feeling so bad. And it's not your fault. It's not nobody wants this stuff. It's just, this is what you're saddled with, what you're born with. And there are, the other thing, what I've come to learn over the years is really a lot of people are going to get better. We just happen to have had pretty crappy outcomes in our family, but we've had some great successes too. So, there's every reason to be hopeful, and people do with medication and with therapy and with understanding. So again, little schmaltzy here, but the last thing.
German schmaltz fat. Perfect.
Yeah, right. So Danny wrote me a letter right before he died. And he said, it's terrible having mental illness, but only love and understanding can conquer this. And I love that. I mean, at the time I thought, like, wow, that's a cheesy thing to say. But the more I've thought about it, it's exactly right. Just love people and find ways to understand them.
Yeah. As the Beatles said, love is all you need.
Right. You don't need therapy. Just buy the White Album.
Yeah. That'd be Magical Mystery Tour.
Okay, sorry. So your brother Jake right now he's in a group home, and I mean he suffers from anxiety and depression. He's a group home right now in Chicago.
Yes.
And
yes.
And I don't know if I read it in one of your. I went on a full Meg Kissinger rabbit hole yesterday, and I don't know if it was CBS Morning News or whatever. You talked about how you've got like a sibling text thread or whatever, and when and you guys have evolved. The Kissinger family has evolved that when Jake has some problems, he reaches out, and everybody just steps right in. Right? I mean, this is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes, and Jake is a hero. He is my superhero. So that guy, has the courage and the humility to call it like it is, and just to say, I'm having trouble. We had this family vacation the summer before last, and he was like, I'm frozen. I can't even pack. I don't know how to put one foot in front of the other. So he just reaches out to us, and we just swarm that guy because we're like, no three-peats in this family. Damn it, we are gonna be with each other and help each other. So yeah, these family text chains are out of control. My nephew has taken to finding any name that he can that is suggestive of a phallus. And when he came across Pete Lecoq.
Oh my God. That's the holy grail right there, right?
That's 2 in 1. That's a twofer. Anyway, so
his real last name is Johnson, by the way.
Yeah, that's former Channel 5 reporter Dick Johnson. That's another
or
one.
Dick Phelan.
Yeah.
Former.
Right.
Oh, you have come to the right place now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. So my husband was the guy named Dick Boyle. I thought that's
that's funny.
I'm sorry.
Anyway,
we were talking penises. Go back.
Right. See, okay, yay, we found the minutia. but I think that the Jake's formula is the correct one. Just to be humble, ask for help. It's nothing to be ashamed of. So he's the man.
Before we let you go, I want to talk to you about your brother Bill, who I've known for, I don't know, about 15 years. He's really the one with the most screws loose, right? I mean Bill is. I've had let me tell you. I'll go out once a month or so, or to breakfast with him. The man is the most persnickety eater I've ever seen. So when he'll order his eggs and his sausage, and then they have to be over easy, Meg. God forbid they're sunny side up or scrambled, right? No toast, has to be an English muffin, and he cuts the egg in these perfect, equivalent little things. Puts it on his English muffin. The coffee has to be right, near his plate. So if he goes to the bathroom, I move everything. So when he comes back, his head just kind of explodes.
Good exposure therapy for Billy.
Right.
Well, he's now world famous because of his. That was the only demand that I had in writing this book, was that I had to call out the fact that he won the free throw contest and the one-on-one in the same year at St. Francis Xavier in Wilmette. And so I think they're going to name the gym after him.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned on CBS Morning News, didn't you? Was that?
Yeah. Well, yes.
Yeah. God, what a publicity hound that guy is.
Absolutely.
Wonderful man, Bill.
I'm going to see him tomorrow morning. I'm going to be on WGN Morning News, and I'll see him there.
Yeah, Rick is pitching his book, which isn't that New York Times didn't say anything about, or isn't a fancy schmancy #1 on Amazon.
But Meg's book is called "While You Were Out: An Intimate Family Portrait of Mental Illness in the Era of Silence," and it's fantastic. We both give it 2 thumbs up.
Right, 2 thumbs. I'm trying to think what is the suicide? I was going to make some suicide.
You're doing so
too soon,
well.
Too soon.
Where can everybody? It's available at Amazon.
You can get it anywhere. Yeah, we love Amazon, but local bookstores. Yeah, get the local bookstores.
Yes. Amazon. We don't need to buy Jeff Bezos another boat.
Yeah.
So buy it from locally. And can people contact you via email or whatever?
Yeah. So just megkissinger.com, or my email is megkissinger57, like the year I was born, at gmail.com. Yep. I'm open for business. Happy to talk to anybody. Yep.
Thank you, Meg.
Well, this has been great. And,
Yeah.
You guys are wonderful.
Your book.
Anytime I can bring up Pete Lecoq is a good day.
I'm with you.
Well, yeah. Our wheels are spinning for our penis podcast that will be coming up in February, I believe.
The White Sox had a player once called Johnny Dickshot. True story. Yeah.
Well, wasn't there a soccer player that had?
I don't know. We'll do a whole show on that next.
Well, you'll be back next Tuesday with another episode of Minutia Penis.
Thanks, Meg. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
You're great.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, she was nice.
Oh my God, that was fantastic. The book really is a wonder.
It is.
It
It
is.
is not as funny as this interview was, but
there are funny parts of it.
There are.
And it's God love the Kissinger family for putting themselves out there to
Bill's
help other
a
people.
great guy too.
Yeah.
I mean, he is.
Yeah.
We don't like to say nice things
No,
about people,
he
but
is a good guy.
he is a nice guy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have people to thank for this show. Who booked the guest for us, Dave? Would that be Dave Stern?
That would be me.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
Thank you to Dave Stern
Yeah.
for booking Meg.
And Bill for giving me the
Idea?
the email
book.
address.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
and the book. Yeah.
Also, thanks to our executive producer, Tony Lasano, with Opie Productions. Opie is hippo backwards. We need to thank our distributor, Ed Silla, with Radio Misfits. Great Talk Radio isn't dead. It just moved to a better place. RadioMisfits.com. And we'll be back again soon with another
episode of
Minutia Men's Celebrity Interview.
Oh my God, in sync. That was great.
The preceding was a presentation of Opie Productions. Find our other great shows wherever you find podcasts, including opishows.com. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of Opie Productions.
Tony, can you shut up?